Hello and welcome to the Alpha site. This video tutorial is going to talk you through what problem the new data model is solving, and we're going to show you that on an existing data model in Tableau version 2018.3. So this data source here comes from Kaggle, and it's a data source on donations. Specifically, those donations are made by donors, and they're made to projects, and those projects are being run at schools, and those projects are being led by teachers. And so this is a subset of the Kaggle data source that looks specifically at projects in schools within Washington in the United States. So there's multiple measures at different levels of detail in this data source. So specifically, an individual donation made by a specific donor at a point in time is at the donation level of detail, the donation amount. But then we also have project level measures that are at a higher level of detail. So the project cost specifically is captured at a project level of detail, and one project can have many donations. So before we look at this data model, I'm actually going to go and connect to just a single one of these tables, just the projects table, to show you what happens on the simplest possible data model with just one table. So if we go to this projects data source and then aggregate the project cost, you'll see that in total there's $4.3 million of projects that are sourcing funding and donations. Now let's take the exact same measure, but in the joined data model that has these 5 tables, and see what happens. So in the joined data model, the project cost is 19 million. And the reason for that is because there's many donations per project, and so every project record is being replicated by the donations level of detail. So just to show exactly what we mean, on the original single table projects data source, if we look at the project ID, there's only going to be one record per project, which means that the project cost measure is only captured once. Whereas if we look at the joined data model, and if we look at the project ID on this data source here from our project table, the number of records is going to be equivalent, in fact, to the number of donations. So here I've done number of records, and then if we also take the donation ID and count that, you'll see that the donation ID is equivalent to the number of records, which then means that the project cost, the original project cost is replicated by 177. And in fact, you could even go and validate that by saying, look at the sum of the project cost, and then look at the average of the project cost, which will just be, or the minimum rather. I think those will be identical since this measure exists per project. You could even validate that this number multiplied by this number gives you this number. So the way that we have historically had to work around this in Tableau is by using level of detail expressions. So instead of this 19 million, we would create a level of detail expression that fixes the project cost as a minimum aggregation to the project level of detail, which is basically exactly what I did in that viz, but just doing it through a calculation so that it's fixed regardless of what dimensions you bring into your visualization. So here you'll see that it's now dramatic. It's no longer 19 million, it's now 2.7 million, which is much closer to the actual project cost, but that number is now still wrong because the data model here is defining all of these as inner joins. So I'm losing data, and so then I need to remember, well, yeah, this actually needs to be a right join because I can have projects that don't have any donations, but then also I can have donations that maybe the donors that information has been removed, and so you need to come here and correct all of the joins before, which one? This one here. and that before getting the correct number. So there's really two challenges. One is that the fact that all tables are being joined all of the time can cause you to lose data. And then the second problem is the fact that multiple levels of detail are being flattened into a single table through those joins causes measure replication, which means that your numbers are wrong. So the next video is going to go through and look at how this is dramatically improved using Tableau's new data model.